short précis of the first 3 years of 7Mile. My name's Greg Twemlow. I'm the founder, CEO, and director of our registered charity. And we incorporated on November 28, 2018. So 3 years almost to the day. And tonight, up at our co-work space at Seafield Village, we're having an event which should be fantastic. There's over 50 people coming, and that'll be a great celebration. So these first 3 years have been pretty amazing for a whole range of reasons. Primarily, I guess, because my original vision for 7Mile has actually been realised. We're making just the kind of impact I thought we could make. And that is working with entrepreneurs in our Northern Beaches region of Sydney, working with people of all ages. Recently, we were working with some 10-year-olds, which is pretty amazing. And we're certainly working with people who are in their 70s and everything in between. So it's been a particularly exciting 3 years. Wonderful for me because I've met so many terrific people, hundreds of people. I wouldn't be able to necessarily put a figure on it, but I know it's well into the hundreds, well over 300. So that's been exciting. But of course, those sorts of things don't get achieved simply because one person has a vision. I've been extremely fortunate to have wonderful people working with me, in particular our board of directors, Mitch Philby, Wei O, Nigel Abbott, and Rob Forsyth. Rob is our board chair as well. And they're all just tremendous people working without remuneration. So we're a charity. So, us directors, etc., we don't get remunerated. But they've all been doing fantastic work. In particular, I want to just mention Mitch because Mitchell was there on day one. He's been a director for the whole time. He's made an incredibly big contribution to the program and to ensuring the success of the program. But thank you to all the directors, and I hope that continues because it's just a pleasure to work with you all. Well, it's a showcase tonight, really, our event in some ways, and it's an opportunity to share the story with a bunch of people who we've known for a long time, and there's also some new faces coming along, so that the community is growing. And the great thing is that, as I said, it is in some ways a showcase, and I can mention 4 of the entrepreneurs who will be there tonight, and they're all local Northern Beaches people. So they've started their enterprise, they've worked with 7Mile, they've raised capital, they're building a team, and they're establishing their business in our region of Sydney, which of course is awesome for our economy. And it's exactly the sort of impact that I thought we could make. So that's particularly exciting. So I can mention 4 examples of entrepreneurs who are there tonight. So Lorraine Ganadignam from Food Street, and you could Google Food Street. And Lorraine has raised a seed round of 250K through Nigel Abbott, through his company Funsition. So that's what Nigel does when he's not a director of 7Mile. He raises capital, often for early stage startups, which is pretty unusual. We've got John O'Connor from Goodra Digby Distillery. John is being very innovative in the making of what we would normally call whiskey, but technically he doesn't age it more than 3 years, so we can't call it whiskey, but it's a very innovative approach, Goodra Digby Distillery. And John has raised, again, through Nigel and Funsition, 800K. So that's sufficient capital for him to set up his distillery. He's found premises in Brookvale, and he's well and truly on his startup journey. Adam Fazani, his startup is Go Tradie. And we've known Adam for, well, even before we incorporated, we were talking to Adam about his project. And at that early stage, it was an idea. It was a side gig. He still had a full-time job. But about a year ago, he decided to jump out and to really focus. And he's raised a seed round of 350K with the help of Mark Forrest. and Mark is also an early stage investor in his own right. So that was a wonderful story as well. Caleb Gibbons, whose startup is Cash Invest. We've also been talking to Caleb for this whole, well, prior to incorporating, so more than 3 years. Caleb has raised $4 million for his fintech startup, and he's building his team and his operation here on the Northern Beaches. So once again, it's just fantastic impact working with entrepreneurs and seeing them raise capital and start their business here on the Northern Beaches. A few shout outs too. We have had some sponsors working with us, mostly in a pro bono sense. Michael Zhu at Blueprint Accounting. Michael has handled our tax work since we started, pro bono. And so that's been fantastic. That's such a huge help to have that sort of work done by professionals and not have to pay big fees. Michael has also offers a virtual CFO service. So for organizations that are growing, and I know Caleb is using Michael as his CFO, and with raising $4 million, you need a CFO. So that's wonderful to have the support of Michael Zhu. And also Matt Ward from Forward IP. Matt is a local guy, has a law practice that focuses on intellectual property. And Matt has been supporting us by effectively paying for a desk in the co-work space for someone to utilize. So that's been wonderful help. And our third pro bono sponsor is Northern Beaches Council, because they've been helpful in different ways. And in particular, we wouldn't have a home, which is our Seaforth Village location, if it wasn't for the support of Northern Beaches Council. So we're very appreciative of those three sponsors. A couple of examples of just how this community works, a couple of quick ones. We've got a person in our community, Liam Carroll, who publishes a monthly magazine all about the Northern Beaches. It's called The Tawny Frogmouth. There's a whole backstory to that, which you could find if you wanted to Google it. A few months ago, I saw in Liam's Tawny Frogmouth publication an ad for Goodred Digby Distillery. And I thought, wow, that sounds really interesting. I should make contact with the person who's doing this. So I found John O'Connor, and I actually interviewed him on the podcast that I do, and we talked about how he was going to get started and the capital to create a distillery is significant. And he said, yes, I'm raising funds. And I said, well, I think I know someone who might just be the right person. And I introduced him to Nigel Abbott, and John has $800,000 in the bank. So that's a great example of the connections that can be made here. Adam Fazani, I mentioned, raised a seed round of 300K. And Adam found Mark Forrest because one of the co-workers in our space, Joe Prelk, introduced Mark to me. And Mark came along to one of the events, met Adam, and they kept talking. And then, Mark has helped Adam raise his seed round. So those sorts of things have been happening all the time over the past 3 years. And I'm sure it'll continue to happen, which is exciting. And it's wonderful to see that those sorts of connections can make such a great impact. I also do a podcast. I do a few things, but I do a podcast called Entrepreneurs Transform. And in that podcast, I interview local entrepreneurs, startup founders, about their plans and their experiences and what they're hoping to achieve. And one of the people I interviewed recently was Tanya Mastrioni, and she was introduced to me by Anne McEwen, who's someone wonderful in our community. And Tanya has started an organization called Business with a Heart. What she does is she gets other businesses to sponsor little teddy bear kits, and she takes those kits out to the hospitals that treat young children with serious illnesses. So she brings a little ray of hope to those young kids with the support of local businesses, which that's just wonderful. We had an opportunity also earlier this year, only back in October, September, October. We worked on a project here called Spark Tank, which was all about, well, it's modeled on the Shark Tank TV sort of concept. So there was a chunk of money raised through the community and the council, and there were 6 teams of young people pitching for a share of that money. And so SEVENmile was a co-sponsor. We provided some funding, and my co-director Hui and I had an opportunity to coach the 6 teams on their presentations. So two of those teams were each of 4 10-year-olds, which was just an amazing experience to see how entrepreneurial young kids of that age could be. I was really surprised and just delighted to see them and the work they're doing, and their energy. So that was a wonderful experience. Tonight at our event, our birthday party event, we've got 2 of the teams attending, Gabby and Remy, both college students, and they have a startup business called Better You, YEW, and I can explain this evening what that's all about, and people who are there can obviously talk to Gabby and Remy. They're wonderful. And Joe and Beth Eagland are siblings, and they have a startup called Wasted Potential, and they're repurposing clothing, particularly for the Gen Z market. So they're both wonderful people. We've also, over those 3 years, we've done work with all other elements of our community, with migrants, refugees, veterans, helped them in different ways. And through that work, I met Raja Yassin. And Raja is a wonderful person. She works particularly with uh, refugees, migrants from Muslim countries, so helps them culturally adapt in some ways, and also helps the schools in the area where she lives understand the Muslim culture, and how they can help protect those young people in their schools. So that's just amazing. Raja also does some work with a private school in the inner west called Newington. And one of the things I found out yesterday was the Tibetan community who we helped here on the Northern Beaches. Raja has arranged for a full scholarship for a young Tibetan student to attend Newington. So, like, that's amazing. And these are the sorts of things that happen in our community kind of all the time. And it's just always delights me to see just what an impact the community makes. We had also one of the highlights of the last year, kind of started in early 2020, is that our state education agency came and met with me and said that they're looking for help to devise an innovative program, particularly for year 9 and 10 students. So they're 15 and 16-year-old high school students. That was their focus. And they wanted to develop a program, a short, sharp intervention that would help give 15 to 16-year-old students a real taste of an experience of working with local business owners, small businesses, and helping them to solve a problem they might be having in their business. And we designed a program. I collaborated with my co-director, Mitch Philby. We designed a program. It was built on a pedagogical model that I had designed a few years previously. It was piloted in 2020, great success, and we did it again in term 2 this year, which was April, May, June. And at a couple of schools here in the Northern Beaches. We got it finished 3 days before a lockdown started. So that was just good luck, I guess, in some ways. But also, again, it was a great success. And we're excited because the State Education Agent Department is committed to scaling it up in 2022. And then they're also committed to see it available to all high schools across our state of New South Wales in 2023. So that's pretty amazing, pretty wonderful. And I'm really, really proud that we have achieved that in the last couple of years. Now, also in relation to that, we have some people that we work with, like Jane Persico from the Broken Bay Diocese, the Catholic school system. Generally in our area, Jane was involved in the programs in term 2, and she really loved the impact. And so we get to work with people like Jane, and Andrew Maguire from the local Balgala Boys High School is there tonight, and Andrew was a key person in the program at Bally Boys in term 2. So we get to work with wonderful people in the education system, people who are truly innovative and doing interesting and exciting things. We also are welcoming our special guests this evening, our Mayor, Michael Regan, Northern Beaches Council Mayor. And we've known Michael the whole time. He's been a great person, supportive of the work we do. So we're appreciative of his help. And Sue Hines, who is a councillor, a Northern Beaches councillor. Sue has helped us a number of times over the last 3 years. We've also worked with her because she has a real passion for helping refugees and migrants. And we also have managed to raise some money this evening for Sue, who was a director of the Manly Warringah Women's Resource Centre. So that's an initiative to help women and young families who are having to escape unpleasant, even violent domestic situations, which is quite an indictment, isn't it, that we have to do that things are so bad for some people that they have to literally run away from their home. But it happens, and it's good that Sue, one of the things Sue does is she acts as a director of that charity, and it's incredibly important work. We've got some interesting goals for 2022. A couple I can mention. One is, so far we have not been funded. We haven't been able to convince local, state or federal government to provide any kind of substantive funding to us. And that's kind of been frustrating, to be honest, because we are making a great impact. And if we can attract some reasonable funding, then we can multiply the impact 3, 10, 20x potentially. So one of our goals in 2022 is to find the right people in those 3 levels of government who can see what we're doing, see that we have made an impact, and provide some financial support. And my original vision for 7mile was to prove an intervention model in our region of Sydney, our urban economic region. And then as that's proven, to take the model and do it in other local government regions, in other urban economies of the Sydney Basin. So we're very keen to do that next year, and we think our starting point will be in the Sutherland Shire, which is kind of the mirror of the Northern Beaches. And the people who live in Sutherland Shire think they live in God's country, and the people who live in Northern Beaches think they live in God's country. And the truth is, they're both wonderful parts of Sydney to live in. So we'd be excited to see that happen and become a reality next year. And generally, as I said, I reflect on these 3 years, and I just feel so privileged that I've been in a position to do what I've done and to meet so many incredible people. Well, thank you for listening, and have a wonderful holiday season. It's already starting, as you probably in your area. It's just about Thanksgiving tomorrow. And so have a great holiday season, and I look forward to seeing you in 2022.